And while I was working at the computer, all of a sudden my phone started alerting me that my glucose has significantly dropped, like all the way down to 53.
Hey, what's up, family? I'm Rachel.
And I'm Joe.
And we are
Two Crazy Ketos. And if you're new to our channel, welcome. Here on Two Crazy Ketos, we do different things like recipe videos and we do product reviews. We talk about various keto topics, and every Monday we go live on Keto Beyond the Couch because life exists beyond the couch.
You can find us in different social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
And we have a website, which is twocrazyketos.com, and that's where you're going to find all of our different recipes. Now, we do upload at least 5 new videos every single week, so make sure you subscribe to our channel.
And don't forget to hit the little bell icon, and that way every single time we upload a new video, you'll be alerted to it.
I'm super excited for today's video because this is one that we have been planning for a while, but we've been trying to figure out how do we fit it into our schedule and how can we find things that I know are going to affect what we're going to use.
Right. This is a tool in the keto toolbox, and we have been kind of using it as a personal data collection for a couple of years now, I would say. We started out on keto using a regular glucose monitor.
Yep, you know, like a $10 thing from Walmart.
Stick yourself, but I didn't like getting stuck all of the time. And it also didn't give me the big picture in the day. I think I used it when I was worried about something. So it was like, I wouldn't use it when I'd have a stressor at work. I'd use it when I ate a keto dessert, basically like that. So I like what we're going to be talking about today because I think it gives you a bigger, broader picture of what's going on in your life.
Yeah, now, again, I want to remind everybody, we are not doctors, nurses, or health professionals. We are two average people who've lost over 100 pounds and maintained it for more than 5 years. And everything we talk about is based on our own personal experience and what we have learned from people who actually are doctors, nurses, and health professionals. And you know, you're talking about the finger stick for glucose.
Yeah.
There's another problem, aside from the fact that I don't like to stick myself with it. And you kind of hinted about, like, it doesn't give you the broad picture. It gives you a moment in time.
Right.
Part of the problem is they have a fairly large margin of error. And also, there's a lot of things that could be impacting that. For example, you could eat a keto candy bar, and you can stick yourself. You can even stick yourself before you eat the keto candy bar and see a glucose number. And then 30 minutes later, stick yourself and either have no reaction or have a higher reaction. But the problem is, what if something prior to that keto candy bar impacted your glucose? Like maybe you were stressed or you were working out. Well, you don't know because you only have that one moment in time when you stuck yourself. And for me, that thinking about sticking myself in itself will raise my glucose.
Oh, absolutely. For me, it was that I never knew what to have eyes on. I was only focused on the food. I was absolutely zeroed in on nutrition and trying to micromanage that aspect of my life. But I wasn't looking at what does exercise do for my glucose? What does stress do? What does not having sleep or having a great night's sleep do for my glucose?
Yeah, so the only thing you could really do is stick yourself and go, okay, my glucose is 150. But again, what if you went for a run and then you check yourself 20 minutes later? Well, that's probably why it's 150. And you don't have that whole curve. And the other thing you could look at would be an A1C, but that's a 3-month average. And again, it's not that great of a data point. I mean, it was what we had, but now we have something better. So if you haven't figured it out, we're going to talk about CGMs. And we're actually going to specifically talk about the Freestyle Libre 3. Now, we are not sponsored by Freestyle or Abbott. We have nothing to do with these companies. We use the 1. We used the 2, and now we're going to try the 3. And we're going to show you the difference between the older ones and the new ones and why we're super excited about the Freestyle Libre 3.
Size alone is one of the reasons why I'm very excited about this.
This is the old box. This is the new box. So that's going to kind of show you. So let's talk a little bit about what a CGM is. So a CGM is a continuous glucose monitor. And what's going to happen, and we're going to do this over a few days for you. We're going to put one on us, and it measures the interstitial fluid, the glucose in there. So it doesn't completely match up with your blood glucose because there's a time difference, but it's going to give you an average. But what it's doing is it's continually measuring your glucose. So now you can look at what happens when I'm sleeping to my glucose. Because before, what were you going to do? Wake up every 5 minutes and stick yourself? You'll find out what happens when I exercise. What happens when I eat certain foods? And then you're going to be able to look at a trend. So now when you see that 150 spike, you could be like, okay, what was I doing when that happened? Was it a food? Was it something else? Did I get into a fight with my significant other? How long did it take to come back down? It's one thing to see that 150 go up and 10 minutes later come down, but what it goes up to 150 and then it stays there for 2 hours. Then we have a different thing. We have to look at that. And the best way to see that is with a CGM. There is a problem. CGMs currently in the United States require prescription. The good news is later on in this video, we're going to show you how you can get a CGM without having to go to your doctor and without having to spend a ton of money. Now, you'll still have to pay for your CGM, but it's fairly inexpensive, like as little as like $70 a month. This is not a company that's going to charge you $500 a month or anything like that. So we're going to talk about that later on. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to put on our CGMs. And what we're going to do is over the next 2 weeks, this is good for 14 days. We may end it a little early because I want to have the video come out before the cruise.
Right.
But we're going to check a lot of different things. We're going to look at what happens to us when we're sleeping. What happens to us when we're taking a walk? I'm curious to see what happens to my glucose when I go scuba diving. I don't even know if it's going to work while I'm scuba diving. I'm hoping it is. But you're going to a theme park this weekend.
I am, with my mom.
So you can see, does riding in a car with your mom elevate your glucose?
I thought you were going to say, like, does a ride elevate your glucose?
Does a ride elevate your glucose?
But you're right. Family relationships, for good or for bad, sometimes impact what's going on the inside of us, right? So we're going to get some data points to collect.
One of the things I've learned from using a CGM in the past, and we've not used the Freestyle Libre 3. This is still in the box. I've learned that taking a hot shower raises my glucose. I've learned if I get up at 2 o'clock in the morning when I go to the restroom, my glucose goes up. Now, can I control that? Absolutely not. But at least I know that's why it's up. I've also learned when Rachel is gone for the day and then comes home, I get excited, my glucose goes up.
And that is a good thing because we recover quickly. That's what we've noticed. As we continue to stay consistent in a keto lifestyle, we've been able to see, spikes in your day, which is like normal human stress, right? Life, that's a good thing to have. But it stays within like a margin, right? Like there's a line that you can trust that it's going to stay pretty steady within.
Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we are going to apply our Freestyle Libre 3. Now,
so much smaller.
You do need to have a phone for this. Now, they do have a reader. I do not know, honestly, because again, we are not affiliated with Abbott, the creators of the Freestyle Libre 3, if their sensor, they do have like a reader itself that can read these.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that works with the Freestyle Libre 3. I know they have an app, and the app works with the iPhone. I'm not sure if the new one yet works with Androids.
Okay.
But that is something you can look at. If we find out anything, we'll put it down below. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to download the Freestyle Libre app, and I'm actually going to screen record so we can kind of show you what's going on. Now, I also wanted to show you, this is an old one. This is the Freestyle Libre. I believe this was the 1. And just to give you an idea of the difference in size.
Look at that.
This is the 3 and this is the 1. I may even just take this out and stick it on me so you can see it.
And I really appreciated this one. I mean, we have used this one. No regrets. I'm really thankful for it. But it does take some serious real estate up on your arm. And I have to live with this thing for 2 weeks.
Now, there's another benefit to the 3 over the 1 and even the 2. And that is why I'm going to tell you, if you are going to your doctor, and we'll talk about how to get it from your doctor a little bit later on, but if you're going to your doctor and asking for a prescription for one, strongly recommend saying, I only want the Freestyle Libre 3. If you go to your pharmacy, tell them, I want the Freestyle Libre 3. Number one, because of size. Number two, the older version, every time you wanted to know your glucose, you had to take your phone and tap it to your arm.
Right.
This one, you don't need to do that anymore.
That's super
It's just
nice.
continually reading it, and you can share the information with, I believe, up to 20 people. So you can share it with your doctors. Like, for example, we recently did a podcast with Dr. Brian Lenskis. He takes all of his patients, they have it, and he can see what's going on with his patient's glucose. So it's a nice thing to have. So you definitely want to get the Freestyle Libre 3 over the 2. And if you're curious when it comes to this versus like the Dexcom, much, much cheaper.
Yeah.
Like much cheaper.
And it's going to give you all the information that you need.
Yep. Are you ready?
Yeah.
So I am going to put it right here. And I already ran a razor on.
I am so glad I shaved my armpits today.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're just going to take this little top off.
Take your top off.
And I'm going to press it right there. Doesn't hurt anything.
Wow.
Look at how small that is.
Look at the size of that thing. Okay.
You want to go ahead and do yours?
Yes, I'll do. Well, you can do it for me.
Okay. So we're going to open it up. And we're going to just press it. And you're in.
And it's really not painful. Like, it's one little stick and you're done.
Okay. After that, the app actually says that you're going to scan your sensor. Okay, so we discovered the Freestyle Libre 3 has its own app because the Freestyle Libre 3 is going to use Bluetooth, not just the NFC. So we downloaded that one. I'm recording my screen. Rachel's already done hers.
It says it's going to be 60 minutes from now.
And her glucose is probably sky high right now anyway because she just got into an argument with somebody outside. Okay, so we're going to hit next, scan new sensor, and let's see. Does not take vitamin C. Sensor will be ready in 60 minutes. Okay, something very interesting just happened with my CGM. So I've got the Freestyle Libre 3 on my left arm, and I was sitting at my computer working and decided, you know what, I want to treat myself. I feel like having a Coke Zero. I remember that we had some Coke Zeros left over in the RV from our camping trip, and before you jump on us, every once in a while, I like to have a Coke Zero. I never claim to be perfect, and I'm okay with it so long as I'm not getting into my habit of drinking like 12 cans a day. Anyway, I decided to have a can. It took about 10 minutes to drink one of these cans. And while I was working at the computer, all of a sudden, my phone started alerting me that my glucose has significantly dropped, like all the way down to 53. So what does that mean? Well, it could mean nothing. Or what it could mean is that I'm experiencing what they call a cephalic insulin response to the Coke Zero, meaning that this is so sweet that my brain is going, hey, I tasted this. You're about to get a whole bunch of sugar. Let me start releasing insulin to deal with that sugar. Maybe, maybe not. I'm going to have to do another test on this to double check that. Why is that a concern if that's the case? Because if that is the case, my glucose should probably go back to normal fairly quickly when it realizes, hey, we're not getting any extra sugar intake. But the reason that this is a concern is if I am experiencing a severe cephalic insulin response from drinking a Coke Zero, that means my body's releasing insulin. And insulin is a fat storing hormone. So if I'm drinking these all day long, that means my body's releasing insulin all day long, and that would affect my ability to lose weight. Now, does that mean I would never drink a Coke Zero? No. What it means is I should seriously think about when I'm going to drink it, like maybe with a meal when I already know I'm going to have an insulin response. Because if I'm eating dinner, even like chicken or burgers or eggs, my body's going to release insulin anyway. So I might as well drink the Coke Zero when I know I'm already having an insulin response. Okay, so we learned something today. The Freestyle Libre 3 does not play nice with scuba diving.
Well, I feel like you pushed it to the limit, sir.
So here's the thing. If you go to the Freestyle website, it does say that it is basically good in up to 8 feet of water. So going swimming.
Right, go in a swimming pool. How deep did you go today, sir?
121 feet.
Okay.
Okay, but so I did go on to scubaboard.com, which if you're a scuba diver and you just want to see some drama.
More than a keto police drama.
More than keto, like take like the most intense like Facebook group for keto carnivore and multiply it by 100 and that's what you get in scubaboard.com.
Dang.
Just like infighting, my agency is better than your agency. I mean, it's interesting if you like soap operas. Anyway,
I don't.
Anyway, I did go on there, and there are a lot of divers who dive with the Freestyle Libre and said they've had no problems.
Okay.
So I do think it's interesting. Now, here's the cool thing. I contacted Freestyle or Abbott, and I explained to them that, hey, I went diving, and they said, no problem. We're going to send you a brand new one.
Wow.
So they're not charging me. They've got a new one on the way.
Nice customer service.
A very good customer service. And I'm going to try it one more time, but not to 121 feet. I'm going to try it in a normal, like, 30 to 60 foot reef dive.
Rachel dive.
But I'm going to put a waterproof patch over it.
Okay.
And see if that changes things. However, before it crapped out, and the other one too, which the other one actually, the original Freestyle Libre did continue to work until I accidentally rubbed it when I was getting undressed at home.
Oh, and then it's gone.
It pulled off.
Okay.
But it was working.
Kind of amazed at that.
Okay, so what do you think the results of a dive on my glucose would be?
I think that it is a stress. Like, it's a good stress. I know you love it. So, I mean, it's happy things. It's a good stress. It's like, you know, birth of a child, wedding day, like good stress, moving to a house you want to move into.
Right.
But I think it's going to spike it.
So I was very nervous going into the dive today for a lot of reasons. Deep dive. First dive with my friend Hugh without our friend Josh. As a matter of fact, the first time I ever dove with Josh was on this same rack.
A lot of emotion.
Like, a lot of emotions. We even, like, saved a seat for him. Like, in between us. Like, he was with us in spirit on the dive. So, a lot of emotions going into the dive. And by the time I woke up at 4 a.m., my glucose was already over 100 and continuing to go up. So some of that is your dawn phenomenon. I jumped into the water and got down to about 120 feet. And at one point, my glucose spiked again, fasted. And I even went into today not even drinking electrolytes. I took some electrolyte capsules from Keto Chow, and water. Like, no energy drink like a lot of times I will do. No soda. No coffee, none of that stuff going into the dive. My glucose spiked to 150 during the dive.
Wow.
I came up on the surface. It dropped back down to like 60 when I got up to the surface.
Do you feel like a little bit woozy?
Was definitely stressed. Then I started the second dive. When I first hit the water, it went up to 100. And then that was a nice relaxing drift dive for 72 minutes. And it pretty much went right along somewhere around 90 or so.
So it went with you for the first dive.
It went with me. Now, no, this is the Libre, the original Libre.
Oh, okay.
The Freestyle Libre 3 crapped out somewhere during that dive.
Okay.
Looking at this graph, and it's kind of hard, it looks like it crapped out probably around 120 feet.
Yeah.
My glucose was up somewhere around 140, and then there's no more measurements. So somewhere in that deep dive, is where it didn't
But
work.
you have the results from the other one.
But it is interesting to see. I didn't know. Was scuba diving going to lower my glucose because I'm relaxed, which is kind of where I was leaning, or is it a stressor?
I thought it would be a stressor.
And I think it depends on the dive.
Well, okay, so if you're stressed, good or bad?
Right.
Let's say it's good, right? It's a good thing. You're taking me along. Maybe you're
Right.
stressed because you're worried that I may want to like call the dive because I see, tarpon and sharks, right? We've had that experience before. Should you stop diving because you may have spikes?
Absolutely not. So like I said, I'm going to put a new one on, but I'm going to wait for the waterproof sensors to come. In the meantime, where are you at?
All right, let's see. Every time I checked in, it was just in the same 95.
Okay, I want to try this one more time because honestly, I think that my glucose going down when I drank Coke Zero is just kind of a coincidence. So I figure we're going to go ahead and drink one more can of Coke Zero while I'm sitting here working on the computer and see, does my glucose significantly drop after drinking this? So it's been about an hour since I've had that Coke Zero and my glucose is holding steady. It hasn't gone up and it hasn't gone down. And that kind of falls in line with the past. In the past, I have checked myself drinking Coke Zero, Diet Coke, and other like sugar-free drinks, and nothing has really affected my glucose. So I really think that when I had that one and my glucose dropped like 50 points and I was thinking maybe it's, like a cephalic insulin response and my body was just releasing a whole bunch of insulin. I think that was a fluke, that maybe the sensor wasn't reading correctly, or there was a blockage in the sensor, or maybe I had way too much water in my fluids, but something didn't seem right. That's why I decided to do it again. And now it's more in line with what I've had in the past. So in the future, if I drink another Coke Zero or another diet drink and it goes down, then we'll examine it further. But right now, I'm not going to worry about it too much. But I still try to keep drinking those kind of like sweetened drinks, or, like alternative sweetener drinks. I try to keep it to mealtime just in case there is some kind of insulin being released. Okay, we have been wearing our Freestyle Libre 3 for just over 2 weeks.
I have like the residual leftover boop where it's stuck in to prove it, and I actually moved over to the other arm because I put another one in.
So for me, I learned a couple things. Number one, if I'm going to go diving with it, make sure I put a water patch over it, because I've actually gone through 2 of them now. So I wore that one, I took it deep diving, it came off, or it stopped working, but the company did just send me a new one.
I really appreciate that.
As a matter of fact, I called them up and they sent me the Freestyle Libre 2, and when I received it, I called Abbott back up and said, hey, I had the Freestyle Libre 3 and you sent me the 2, and they're like, no problem, you can go ahead and keep the 2. And you can use that, and then we'll also send you out a 3. And so they did send me a replacement Freestyle Libre 3. So I was really appreciative of that. I did go about 4 days because I knew I was going to be doing a bunch of diving, that I didn't want to put one on because I didn't have the waterproof patches. So I ordered the waterproof patches, and when they came on,
and they're cheap.
I put it on.
They weren't expensive.
No, I ordered off of Amazon. I'll leave a link for where I got them down below. Very easy to go on. And I like the fact that they're clear. And the thing that I really like about this one is there's no sticky stuff right over the sensor.
Yes.
So you can pull this one off without pulling the sensor out.
That's very nice.
When I put the waterproof patch on, I have since gone diving 6 days in a row, and it has continued to work, with every one of my dives being between 40 to 80 feet. And it has continued to work. Some really cool things have come out with using the Freestyle Libre over the last couple of weeks. And we've used them before, but I know people have messaged us like, why do you even need to bother having one, especially if you're not a type 2 or a type 1 diabetic? And you had a good experience too. Why?
Well, because I had recently gone with my mom on a trip, and on our way home, we decided to stop at a racetrack and get a Coke Zero, which I have drank several times, and we've used a CGM when I've had one before, never had a reaction. In fact, I came home after this trip and drank another one, an actual one out of a can, to see like, did I have a problem with it? And I didn't. So when we were on the trip, we were just about to get onto the turnpike to drive home, and clearly they screwed up the lines at the racetrack that we visited, and my fountain soda had legit sugar in it. Now, I was starting to get a stomach ache, a headache. I started to feel like a puffiness in my eyes, but I just started to just write it off as like I'm tired, or, you know, I'm headed back home. I don't know what I was trying to reason, but the alarm went off and alerted us to the fact that my glucose was just like da 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 da. I mean, it was really just going up and up and up. And I was able to see what basically a couple of sips of a Coke does for me. And I am definitely somebody who in the past, even when I was on like, you know, like a diet, not on the oatmeal diet, but previously when I would be on like Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, lean cuisine diet, that sort of thing, I would absolutely go take a sip of somebody's something, just a bite of something, and think to myself, I'm not eating the whole thing, so it can't be making that much of an impact. And I realized a couple of sips of actual sugar makes a huge impact.
Yeah. And the thing about that was because it alerted you fairly quickly, you were able to stop drinking the drink.
I was able to stop drinking the drink and pull over, knowing that this is a foreign substance to me. Like, all of a sudden, I don't know what is going to happen.
Like, you're allergic to sugar at this point.
I really am. And it was a terrible headache, terrible stomach ache. And again, what scared me the most was like vision issues. And so we pulled over until it came down again. Thankfully, we were not, you know, in a rush, and I didn't try to push past it. But it was very upsetting.
Here's the thing is that we actually got a couple messages when we were talking about making this video on some of our other videos where one person said, there's really no reason for a CGM, just eat the right foods. But sometimes even the right foods can like cause reactions. But it's not just about what you're eating. It's also about what's going on throughout the day. Like we had a couple of very stressful situations. Seeing what stress does has really been interesting. But the other thing that we've been able to determine by looking at the app is, you know, we heard about the dawn phenomenon in the past. That
right.
Like a lot of times in the morning, your glucose goes up. And for both of us, if you look in the app, and that's really cool, when we look at daily patterns, it does for both of us somewhere around 8 o'clock, our glucose is at the highest. And then it stays there for 2 or 3 hours. And then it gradually comes back down. And we see that with both of us. But if you were just doing a finger stick and checking yourself at like 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning, you'd be like, why is my glucose so high? But because you can see this trend and it's every single day, I feel a lot more at ease. Now, one thing I did record with me is the CGM on me, and I don't know why, I don't know if it's I'm not hydrated enough or what it is, but the CGM tends to read about 20 points higher than blood glucose. So I have repeatedly checked it over and over and over again when like it was always reading like I'm like somewhere around 100, 110, but then when I would finger stick, I was always like 80 to 90, and it's been pretty consistent. But I'm okay with that because, again, what I'm looking at is that trend. I don't necessarily care about the number as much. I'm looking at the trend, and I'm okay with that. Whereas Rachel's
seems to be right,
pretty much right on point.
Right on point. So it's definitely something that I think you have to test personally because we're using the same monitor and we're having a little bit of different results, you know, based on, you know, maybe I store water better than you.
Let's talk about the pros and the cons of the Freestyle Libre 3 because I have been able to in the past use the Dexcom. And some of the things that we like and some of the things that we don't like about it. Overall, again, as we've said over and over, I think everybody should play with a CGM. I think you're going to learn valuable information and put your mind at ease or start realizing, hey, there's some things going on. Right. For example, we're actually using these to test another product. And one of the things we did was this morning, we had something that is a whole food, but a little bit higher in carbs. And most people, even in keto, would be like, oh, what would be the harm in having that little bit? And it was literally like less than 100 grams of something. And it was not like a prepackaged food or anything like that. It was a piece of fruit. And it shot Rachel's glucose like 70 points. And it took a couple of hours for that to kind of come back to where she normally is. And again, so when you have a CGM on and you see that, you'd be like, yeah, that's probably not worth it.
It's the truth.
So, okay, pros of the Freestyle Libre 3. I'm going to start off with my biggest pro is I really like the fact that you no longer have to tap it, that it's just reading it through Bluetooth. It's always recording it. I don't have to tap it. I don't have to wake up in the middle of the night and tap it. There's nothing missing on my chart because it's just always recording it.
I absolutely love that too. I took a little bit of having it on for a while for me to stop tapping it. I found myself just like, doing it because we've had it for so long. But it's been very nice to have so much data through the night.
Yep.
For me especially. And we learned something interesting that we never really noticed before using a CGM, mostly because you would have to wake up to tap it maybe a couple of times during the night, and now I don't have to. And that is my blood glucose goes very low while I'm
drops
sleeping.
Down into like the low 50s in the middle of the night.
And we found out that while you can set it like an alarm to go off at a certain level that maybe you're not comfortable with height-wise, you can't turn off an alarm for it going very low. So we would have it going off throughout the night and finally just realize that it was better to just close the app if you didn't want to be like woken up all night long.
And that's probably one of the cons that I would have with it. Another pro, by the way, is just the size. The fact that it's so much smaller.
Very
even when you compared it to the Dexcom,
unobtrusive.
With the Dexcom, it was a big, thick machine. You can feel it. This is very slim, very, very tiny. Like, again, like probably a little bit bigger than a quarter. You don't even realize it's there. I would forget it's there. It's under my wetsuit, and like I didn't even feel it. I also don't feel it tugging on my skin the way I felt some of the larger ones do.
Me either. And there's a couple times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I must have lost it because it's so tiny. Like I would have to feel around for it.
But with regards to a con, since you brought it up, you can set like a low, but the lowest they will let you set is 70. And after that, if your glucose drops below 70, you start getting alarms ringing. And when it gets really low, the ultra low, which is an alarm you cannot turn off, it will just every once in a while ring. And what we learned is the only way to stop that, and it would only really happen in the middle of the night, pretty much the same time every night. It would wake me up. Like Rachel doesn't even wake up.
I slept through it.
It'd be like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, it starts ringing. And so what I learned is if you close the app completely, it'll give you a warning saying it can't keep readings. When you close out the app, it's not going to be monitoring, but I'm okay with that. And then it just doesn't ring all night. But what we learned is when you get up in the morning and you open the app back up, it does have all of the data.
It stored it.
It takes about 15 to 30 seconds. When you first turn it on, it's going to say no connection, and then it establishes connection, and then everything fills back in.
I was very impressed by that because I thought that if we closed it out, you wouldn't get anything.
Yeah, it's just not giving you alerts. The only other con that I have with it, well, actually there's two cons. The next one is that unlike the Dexcom, you can't calibrate it. So I've found with myself when I had the Dexcom, the same thing, that the CGM was always reading about 20 points higher than what my blood glucose is, but with the Dexcom G6, I was able to go in and you would calibrate it. It would say, okay, take a blood reading. You would take a blood reading, and then it would say, take another blood reading, and I would take another blood reading, and then it would calibrate it and say, okay, so when the machine says it's 100, you're really at 80. You can't do that with the Freestyle Libre 3, but much cheaper, so I'm okay with that, just knowing that I'm generally about 20 points lower than what it's saying.
Well, what we're looking for anyway is like a trend.
Yeah.
I'm looking to see that there's not like giant spikes, right? I'm looking to see, I like to liken it as a handwriting line. If you ever remember like paper from elementary school where you'd have to write within the lines.
Right.
So I'm looking and saying like across the days, and I like that you compare what's the week look like? What is the last 2 weeks look like? What's the month look like to see, am I staying steady?
Yeah, and we did have giant spikes at some point, but they were never food related, except for when we were doing our one testing thing and when you had your sugar.
Right.
But what we found is there are certain things that cause spikes, like working out or, stress, things like that. But again, those are things that at least we know that's going to cause my glucose. And that means your body's working the way it's supposed to. You want that. The only other con that I would have, it comes into with the app, and that is you can't zoom in on time. So you can see all of these different daily trends and glucose alerts, and you can even tag foods and everything, but you can't actually zoom in. Like, you just see this bar graph, and you see like 8 to 10 or 8 to 11, but you can't go in and like at 8:15 or something like that.
Right.
So I wish you could zoom in a little bit more. But other than that, I think that's a ticky-tack thing. We've really gotten some good information. And what we wanted to do is just kind of wrap up with how to get one. Because generally, you do need a prescription here in the United States to get one. Hopefully, that is going to change. In the past, we would recommend some companies where basically it was like a teledoc, and they were kind of doing it on the side where you would go in and you would pay the company and they would give you a referral. And they sold other services with it. So they weren't bad, but you would get like a private dietitian that would help monitor it. And then they were sometimes able to actually go in with their app and calibrate it. But the problem with that is they would mail you the Freestyle Libre, and that was the one. But it was very expensive, like $300 to $400 a month.
It was the best option at the time.
Yep.
Like every single time we find something that like will be maybe less expensive or like easier to get, we're going to bring it to everybody. But like at the time, that was the best we could do.
If you couldn't get a prescription from a doctor.
Exactly. And you weren't willing to go through the whole spiel that Joe does about like basically.
Well, let's talk about that.
Thinly veiled threatening of the doctor.
The best way to get a Freestyle Libre 3 or 2 is to go to your doctor and say, can you please give me a prescription for a CGM? I want to monitor my glucose to make sure that I don't become a diabetic or see where I'm at. Some doctors are going to be great. Some doctors are going to be like, you don't need that. No. So at that point, you could go the route that Rachel's talking about, that Dr. Barry taught me, where basically you say like, fine, notate my records. I want a copy of that. And then hopefully they'll write it because they're afraid you're going to sue them. Or you can go the route of another way that we've now found, and it's through a company called Tastermonial. And I'm really excited about this.
Me too.
Because it's very inexpensive. And we're actually going to do another whole video on Tastermonial, and we're going to interview them because I love what they stand for and what they're trying to accomplish. But I wanted to go over to the website because if you don't have a doctor that's willing to write you a prescription, this is going to be the easiest and best way for you to get a Freestyle. So you would hit get the CGM, and then you have two options. You can get a prescription, or you can get a prescription and sensors. If you get a prescription, you're going to choose, and you can get 1 month of sensors for $40, $39. That is your prescription.
Crazy cheap.
That would be like going to your doctor and, you have a copay, you go to your doctor, hey, write me a prescription. For $39, they're going to write you a prescription. And what's going to happen is they're going to send you an email and you're going to fill out a medical questionnaire. And then they're going to call the prescription into the pharmacy that you tell them you want it to call into. So they'll say, like, what is the address and the phone number for that pharmacy? And they call the prescription in. Now, you can also do 3 months and then the price goes down. So you're basically getting what? Like more than a month for free. So you can get 1 month, 2 sensors for $40. You can get a prescription for 6 sensors for $76 or 12 sensors for $98. So if you want to wear them for a long time or just get a bunch of them and stockpile them and use them whenever you feel like it, you can go the $98 route. The other option they have is if you don't maybe have a pharmacy near you, you can do the CGM prescription and the sensors, and that's where they're going to send you a challenge kit, the prescription, and then 2 CGMs. And the CGMs, you're basically paying $200, and that's $40 plus the price of the CGMs, which is about $150. Now, I do have insurance, but my insurance won't pay for my CGMs. We have really high deductible, and it goes to Walgreens. But because we have insurance, you pay like the insurance rate if they were going to cover it. So for me to go to Walgreens with just a prescription from my doctor and they have my insurance card on file, it's $75 for 2 sensors. So what I wanted to do is know is how much does this cost with no insurance, no nothing.
Okay.
So I had them call the prescription into CVS, who does not accept our insurance. And when I went in there, the full price, no insurance, no discount, no coupon, no nothing, was $150.
Okay.
Which is still not bad. That's $75 a sensor.
No, it's not.
But if I would have given her my insurance card, she said I would have paid $75 because even though they don't take the insurance, because the insurance company isn't paying for it, they can give me the insurance rate. I could have done it through GoodRx, and the GoodRx lowered the price down to, I think it was $95, she said.
Okay.
But the cashier was really great. She's like, are you a cash pay? I'm like, yes. She's like, great, no problem. I can look up, and within the store, we have coupons. And it was $78 for 2 sensors, no insurance, no GoodRx card, none of that.
But this is going to be dependent on a pharmacy tech, like, working with you.
Yeah,
like,
you can just ask,
helping.
if you go into CVS, just say, do you have any coupons? And we've experienced that in other places, too. Also, they have on the testimonial page a link to Abbott's website, and you can go on there, and they will send you, and they did send me a coupon for 1 free sensor.
Nice.
Or one free prescription. The only thing is that was for, the one they sent me was for a Freestyle Libre 2, not the 3, and I really liked the 3 over the 2. But very, very simple, and still, even there, if you paid the full price at $150 for 2, plus your $39 prescription, you're at $200. That's half the price of the other company that we were working with.
Yeah, I mean, that is a deal. And again, it's not that what we were doing before was wrong. It's just that as new information comes out and we can get the price point lower, that's what we want to do. That's what we want to share, right? Obviously.
Basically, now you're just paying for your sensor plus $40 or less for your prescription. And I'm really excited about that. And hopefully, eventually, you don't need prescription. So overall, I highly recommend the Freestyle Libre 3 or the Freestyle Libre 2. But now that you have the 3, I have no desire to use the Dexcom. There were a couple of times where I paid the ridiculous money for a Dexcom because I wanted the abilities that it did. But again, as somebody who's not a type 1 or a type 2 diabetic, and I'm not reliant on it to dose myself with insulin, this is giving me all the information I need. The only thing it's missing compared to the Dexcom would be the calibration thing, and I can just calibrate in my head. I'm fine with calibrating in my head.
I will do the math to save the math.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know down in the comment section, have you tried the Freestyle Libre 3, or have you tried any of the different CGMs that are on the market? And did you learn anything that surprised you? Let us know down in the comment section. Now, if you like seeing videos like this, take a look at some of the videos we have linked right over there. Also, make sure you take a look at the most recent video I'm going to put right over here.
But whether you head this way or you head this way, don't forget to head this way. Subscribe to our channel and click the little bell icon, and that way every single time we collect data, you'll be alerted to it.
Till next time.
Bye.